What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing the government in terms of digital transmission, and how can they be overcome?
Well, I think digital transformation, as I explained, is a very complex thing because you're dealing with multiple players, you're dealing with many people who don't want it to happen. It's about creating an architecture so many issues. But I think India, fortunately, I think all these things have come together well. Today, we have a whole set of people inside and outside the government who have a common goal, which is how do we create layers and layers of digital transformation. And architecturally, we have designed it in a way that you can keep adding layers. For example, the original Aadhar only had authentication and KYC and DBT because we linked Aadhar to the banking system. Subsequently, NPCI came out with UPI, but that was a layer of payments that was above that. Then the RBI came out with the account aggregator framework, which again is another layer of capability above that. Then MAT came out with DigiLocker, which today is run by Abhishek Singh. And that has been a huge success with 150 million people using DigiLocker to store 5 billion documents. So I think because this transformation is a multi-year journey, we have to build layers and layers, but design in a way that each interoperates with the other so that when you stack all this up, it creates very powerful capabilities. So I think, and this is just the Aadhar side, but for example, Prakash was the founding CEO of GSTN. And today we have the GSTN, which has become a remarkable common tax platform for our GST. Our income tax systems have been completely digitized. Our education systems have been completely transformed with the Diksha platform. Our health stack has been built by NHA. So today, digital transformation has become pervasive in the Indian government and society.
Working at UIDAI, trying to work on the delivery of public services online and have achieved real-time around 20%. What, in your opinion, are 1 to 2 projects in public which should be done that are transformative in nature like Aadhar?
There are many. Obviously, when we design in public service, we have to design for universal access. And universal access means some people have smartphones, some people have only feature phones, some people have no phones. And therefore, I think designing for universal access is very important. We will design for both self-service and assisted service because people who are literate and have a smartphone can all do self-service. But if I'm an illiterate villager and I want access to my money, I need to go to a BC and withdraw money, and that's assisted service. So I think some of the transformational things going forward, one is going to be in language. And today, the MAT has a program called Bhashini, which is to create the world's best Indian language multilingual translation capability for 22 Indian languages. A lot of the work is being done at IIT Madras under the AI for Bharat scheme. And I think if we really want technology to reach everybody, they should be able to get it in their own language. And once we have the complete infrastructure of Bhashini, then every government service can be delivered in 22 Indian languages in speech or in text. And we think this is very important. This is not far away. For example, NPCI is implementing voice recognition of payments in any language. So I can give to my feature phone, I can give a payment instruction in Hindi and it will implement the payment instruction. So I think language is going to be a big use case. The other big transformational thing, of course, is going to be using AI. Even the language is based on AI, but using AI to make government services more accessible. So I think language and AI and bringing in much more learning technology in education, all these are big opportunities in India.
What kind of innovation is expected in common projects in view of the growing adoption of AI technologies like GPT-4?
Actually, in my view, India has been a leader in applying IIT for public projects. I'll give you a few examples. In fact, Prakash knows when he was at GST, there is AI being used at the back end of GST to catch fraud. And one of the reasons of the buoyant tax collection is our compliance has improved. And one of the reasons the compliance has improved is if somebody tries to create, fake credits in invoices and all that, we can easily catch that with AI. So that's one example. Second example is in liveness detection in Aadhar authentication. Today, across the board, we have liveness detection. So there again, people were earlier using gummy fingers and all that is now being tackled with liveness. Face authentication in Aadhar is completely using AI. So AI has been quite pervasive, and now the Supreme Court is using the multilingual AI for Bharat technology to create judgments in multiple Indian languages, so that if you issue a judgment, immediately it's translated into Hindi, Tamil, Kannada, whatever. So I think, and certainly large language models like ChatGPT are going to be very useful. There's already a project which METI is looking at, which is take all our government schemes, ingest them into a GPT kind of model, use the multilingual AI. So a farmer can sit in his village on his phone, ask questions in Hindi or Tamil, and he will get answers on any subject. So there's a lot of work. I think India will actually, in my view, be a leader in applying AI for public purpose.
Did you ever feel like a fish out of water while working with the government, at least initially?
No, it was obviously very difficult. I had spent all my life in the private sector. I had no idea I had some idea how government worked from the outside, but knowing how it worked from outside and inside are two very different things. And that's why I decided to surround myself with top bureaucrats and top technocrats, because I think they were, I think having the best team is very important, and I was very lucky to get people like Ram Sevak ji and Ganga ji and Srikar and Ashok Pal and many, many others. What is, and in fact, even that was made possible by an IAS officer, my friend KP Krishnan from the Karnataka cadre. When I got this job, I went to KP and said, KP boss, you got to help me find some people to do the project. And he found Ram Sevak and Ganga and Srikar for me. So I think I've always relied on my, network and people I know. And I realized that you can't do something like this alone. You need a fantastic group of people with you. And so it was a very difficult experience for me. And I had to have a very steep learning curve, because I was learning on the job and I had to make sure I didn't put my foot wrong. And I did many things. I'll give you a simple thing I did. I went to every state, every week I would take an early morning flight and go to Ranchi or Patna or Guwahati or whatever. And that was very good, because I went out, I did a reach out, to outreach to all the states. Similarly, when our chief minister came to Delhi, I never made him come to my office. I always went to the Bhavan. So if I had to meet the chief minister of Bihar, I would go to Bihar Bhavan. Because for him, Bihar Bhavan is a little piece of Bihar in Delhi. And that was my way of signaling that, you're important and I will not make you come to me, I will come to you. So these are all basic human lessons, nothing with government. But I think all this helped me to create sort of a consensus in the system. And the other thing I learned in government was I'm not into hierarchy and all that, whereas many people are very hierarchy conscious. So that was actually to my advantage, because I would speak to the minister, to the secretary, to the principal secretary, to the joint secretary, to the director, to the deputy director, to the guy at the door who was opening the door for me. So because I talked to everybody, I actually had a much better idea of what is happening than anybody who only talked to his level, So I think in some sense, being an outsider helped me to crack the system a little better.
Did you ever feel like quitting?
No, there were at least 7 or 8 occasions when I thought the game was up. When the court put a stay on something, or when some NGO went and said this should be stopped, or when some other ministry said we will take it over, many of those usual stuff. So I would say there were many, many times when I said the game is over. I won't be able to get through this one. So I had to really navigate that. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think there was any day when I said I'm going to quit and go back home. I think I said I got to see this thing through. So that was non-negotiable for me.
There is a possibility of office misuse as well. How do you make it impenetrable and fully secure?
Okay, remember, right from day one, Aadhar was an ID for residents. If you go back and look at the original cabinet, Geo, etc. of 2009, it was very clearly for residents. because Aadhar is not the agency to ascertain anything else except residency, and it is really, the Home Ministry has to look at the issue of citizenship and all that. So the whole thing was for residents, and the idea was that once every resident has an Aadhar, then you can also, somebody else can figure out whether they should be a citizen or not. So Aadhar was always a resident's ID, it was not a citizen's ID.
When my Aadhar is linked to all my bank accounts and every fintech activity, then why can't we just have Aadhar as one ID for all plastic cards? This way we can also reduce our carbon footprints.
That is not a decision that Aadhar can take, because Aadhar is only providing the thing. Now, but also there are market forces, right? I mean, if I'm using a RuPay card, that will be one plastic card. If I'm using Mastercard, another plastic card. So I don't know if they can bring it all down to a single card. Wherever possible, we can ensure that Aadhar is a common thing. For example, KYC. I think one of the things we did was we got PMLA, Ministry of Finance, Department of Revenue, to get Aadhar KYC as good enough KYC under the PMLA. And then we got all the regulators, RBI, SEBI, PFRDA, IRDA, TRAI, etc., all to accept KYC. So we can do it by going to individual departments and then convincing them to adopt it. It's very difficult to say there should be one plastic card for every application. But the best is to go to no plastic. I mean, today in India, if you look at it, all our payments don't have plastic. In India, since the independence, we have only got 7 million POS machines. But in 3 years of UPI, we have 50 million QR codes where there's no plastic, and I just point my phone at the QR code and make a payment. So in some sense, we should go beyond plastic. And as Abhishek said, I think one of the big successes, and I want to give my congratulations to Abhishek, is DigiLocker. DigiLocker was conceived in 2015 when Ram Sevak Sharma was the IT secretary, and along with Dr. Pramod Verma, the chief architect, they came up with DigiLocker. But DigiLocker today has become a phenomenal success, and it already has 152 million people using it and more than 5 billion records. And I think Abhishek is talking about DigiLocker 2.0, where you can put all the documents, every document. Already you can put your driver's license, your vehicle registration, your Aadhar, your vaccination certificate. But tomorrow even loan agreements, etc. And so I think DigiLocker will reduce the need for paper. That will be good for environment. It will reduce the need for plastic. And DigiLocker and UPI really takes care of everything. So I think today, I only travel with my phone. I don't travel with any cards because I pay with UPI. I show my Aadhar ID at the airport with my phone, and I use DigiYatra to board the plane. So everything is on my phone, and I've reduced plastic in my life.
Related to the integration of Aadhar, UPI, and DigiLocker, in regard to the role of cyber security and large-scale government projects, how would you advise government officials to go about planning for cyber security and be careful about any vulnerabilities? Since nowadays with great data comes great responsibility. So, what would be your advice for that?
No, I think it's a very, very important issue. I think cyber security is very important, and as India digitizes more and more, we will have more and more possible vulnerabilities. I think there are many, I mean, it's not the forum, but there are many ways of thinking of secure by design. So designing with security in mind, privacy by design, making sure that information collection by design is limited so that there is, privacy issues and so on. So there are many principles, and by and large, these principles have been used in most of the projects that I have talked to about today. However, there are definitely vulnerabilities in India, and we know now that cyber is a form of, it's a part of global geopolitics. Countries use cyber as a way of attacking other countries, and we have to be extremely, extremely careful.
As Mr. Nilekani said, he managed to assemble quite a brilliant team, tech experts like Dr. Pramod Verma, Sanjay Jain, and Vivek Raghavan, who continue to spearhead the various India Stack initiatives. I wonder if this was just luck that such amazing people became part of the team, or was there any special incentivizing strategy that Mr. Nilekani can use to pick and choose the best heads for the job? Also, was this accomplished only with the help of volunteers, or were there also private players and firms and individuals that were involved in Aadhar's journey?
Well, the incentive was a chance to change the country. That was the incentive. There's no other incentive. So, I think we underestimate how much the power of purpose is. Purpose is also powerful. And whether it was my friends in the bureaucracy like Ram Sevak, or my friends in the private sector like Vivek and Sanjay and Pramod and Shrikant and Jagdish and all that, they all came because they said, here's a chance to make a difference. Here's a chance to contribute to a transformational project. They didn't come for money. They came because it was a chance to make a difference. So I have found that purpose, especially transformational purpose, large audacious goals, have their own incentive, and it attracts people. And of course, I was very, very lucky to get such a phenomenal team assembled. But it's also because they were attracted by the purpose. They felt that this was a chance for us to change the country, and that's why they all came. And of course, many of them joined. Obviously, on the government side, they were all government employees. On the private side, some of them joined as consultants to the NISG route, the National Institute of Smart Governance, through which we could get technology talent. Some of them came on a sabbatical from their employer, so they were not paid by us; they were paid by the employer. But we made sure they didn't work on anything where there was a conflict. Some of them came as volunteers. Many techies who had made enough money said, I don't need money, I'll come as a volunteer. And then we had a lot of young people come as interns who brought in youth and freshness. So we had many, many ways to assemble people together.
Can you suggest some golden rules to ensure the transformation projects we deploy that do not attract litigation? This is a question from the implementation team.
I told you the Aadhar case was the second longest running case in the history of the Indian Supreme Court. So believe me, I did attract litigation. So there is no way you can avoid litigation. But I think it's very important to follow the rule book. And I found that if you do things systematically, like procurement, for example, I made sure that all our procurement was by the rule book, or the financial, GFR, General Financial Regulations. I made sure that all the financial decisions were by the rule book. So, I was very clear that everything would be done by the rule book, and I would make everything transparent. I didn't want anyone to say that some decision is being made, some fellows are not telling us that. Everything was out of the public domain. So it was just so putting it in the public domain was in some sense my defense against anyone attacking the project. So it can be done. I mean, our procurement, there's not been a single question on a procurement, even though we may have spent lots of money, because we did everything very, very properly.
How can we scale up projects on emerging technologies while working with the government, keeping in mind the challenges for a startup?
No, I think it is, unless the government has a specific policy for encouraging startups, it's often difficult for startups to work with government, because the government interaction is very time consuming, and you'll spend a lot of time in spinning wheels trying to get something done. Also, often decision making can take time. Then there's this whole L1 business, so then you have to be the cheapest and so on. So I think it's better to look for government projects where there's a stated intention to bring in innovation, maybe through a sandbox method or something, rather than generally trying to sell to government, which may be time consuming.
How do state governments leverage the digital platforms in sectors such as health, education, etc., that are in the state digital subjects? How should the Government of India incentivize the adoption of such platforms, such as Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission or Bhashini?
I think today the states have enormous capacity to leverage stuff. Obviously, the India Stack infrastructure any state can use. So if I'm running a state scheme, I can do that on the same infrastructure, which is being done. Andhra Pradesh is a good example of that. I think Bhashini libraries will be used everywhere. I know that Tamil Nadu is launching a major learning program using in Tamil and English for children using some of the Bhashini work. So that any state can use it. It's all open source. It's available with AI for Bharat, etc. The health stack, again, I think all the standards are out there. Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, electronic health records, interoperable service. It's all there. frankly, I would think that if a state wants today, it can take a leadership role in digital transformation, leveraging all the infrastructure we have created in the last 15 years.
What, according to you, is the future of digital governance? What capacity should the government build keeping the future in mind?
Well, I think, first of all, one is, of course, spreading the awareness of both the power of digital governance as well as the risks of digital governance. And I think we have to do that across the government system. All of us speak at Mussoorie or at the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Institute for Police in Hyderabad or whatever, or the Shimla Institute for the audit guys. So I think we have to spread the message through all these guys, the Foreign Service and so on. So second is that I think we need to create more mentoring inside the system. I think many of the people who have done these projects have to mentor the younger officers on what is possible. But the good news is that in India, there's a broad collective consensus that this is the way to go. So whether you speak to politicians, businessmen, bureaucrats, intellectuals, by and large, they acknowledge that this is transformational nature. So many countries haven't even reached that point. Many countries are even much, much behind. So we are at a unique spot, and we realize that in the G20, where I'm the co-chair of the Digital Transformation Task Force with my friend Amitabh Kant, and other countries are really not even at where we are. So we already reached a lot, and we have to go. I think Abhishek wants to add something, Abhishek? I think, as I said, like when I began, I remember the first meeting I had. At that time, my friend K. Chandrasekhar was the IT secretary, and Abhishek was a very junior officer in that meeting. And today he's sitting there running DIC and Karma Yogi, and anything they want to give it to Abhishek. So I think it shows that there's continuity in the system. Well, if I was doing Aadhar today, I would do it as a real-time enrollment system. I would, because at that time we didn't have the network connectivity and we didn't have the bandwidth, and we had to do offline enrollment, and then all the packets had to be collected and sent to a central data center and processed, and all. It would take weeks. Today, I think I would issue an Aadhar online. Just enroll and you get your Aadhar. So that's because technology has made it possible. And we would have done face auth much earlier. Aadhar did face auth only in Saurabh's time in the last 2-3 years. We've done it much earlier. And I think we would have used tokenization a lot earlier. We did introduce tokenization, but should have been done earlier. But at that time, it was difficult to tell people what is ID, let alone what is a tokenized ID was even more complex. So we stayed away from that.
This question is related to digital public infrastructure, DPI. How does the DPI enable entrepreneurship? How is it different from any other private digital ecosystem? Will the ecosystem surrounding India's stack be made keeping in mind the entrepreneurial opportunities as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole idea of DPI is not just government. The idea of DPI is to create a set of population scale public rails which have interoperability, competition, innovation, and then allow private companies to innovate. And UPI is a great example of that. UPI is a public infrastructure run by a non-profit company like NPCI. But the actual players on UPI on the bank side are both public and private banks. And on the consumer side, the leaders are PhonePe, Google Pay, and Paytm, who are all private companies, each one trying to compete and do something. So absolutely, the architecture of DPI is to create digital public infrastructure in a techno-legal way and then allow innovation to flourish.
Governments have wholeheartedly understood and adapted AI. How do we create a mindset for other emerging technologies like blockchain and analytics, which can be even more powerful in solving issues at the ground level?
I think AI, in my view, is really the biggest change agent in the digital world today. So I would give it the importance it is getting. I think blockchain has some use cases, but we have not really seen that many. We are mainly in settlements and stuff like that. So I think AI is analytics. I think is happening. I mean, if you look at what we're doing in GST or income tax, there's a huge amount of analytics being used to figure out how taxes are being paid and so on. So I think there's a lot but there could be more. I think in analytics and big data analysis, and maybe it's worthwhile maybe having a horizontal group across government that looks only at big data analysis.
Where to start for such large transformation projects to work? Should it have a political consensus first or a bureaucratic alignment first? Where is the starting point for it to get acceptance?
No, I think any change requires political momentum. You can't do change without political momentum. And I think but if you have the political momentum, it is the duty of technologists and bureaucrats to seize the opportunity of that political momentum to put in something transformational. So, for example, when I was in government, I did 7 or 8 reports on different types of digital plans. Like I did a report on financial inclusion. I did a report on how to do large projects. I did a report on road thing. I did a report in 2010, which laid the foundation for FASTag. And for many years, it didn't really go there. But at some point, the political will was there to make FASTag successful. And today, FASTag does, 3 billion transactions a year, where everybody is paying on the highways. So I think those of us who want digital transformation have to lay some of these reports and tools in place. And sooner or later, there'll be political will which will want that, and then we can make it happen. And of course, bureaucratic alignment is super important.
Mission Karmayogi is building capacities for all sectors. You had done a report on HR issues to implement digital projects. What do you think Mission Karmayogi should be doing, or what mission probabilities should be doing to ensure that we are able to build capacities within the government for the implementation of large-scale digital transformation products?
I think we probably now need to package both a course and a series of courses only around digital transformation. And there are these courses don't exist because nobody's done this. So I think we have to leverage the human capital in India across the public and private sector and actually encapsulate the learnings like we are doing in this session, and then have a proper course in Mission Karmayogi, and then also combine that with the training at the institution. So whether it's Masuri, LBS, or whether it's Vallabhbhai Patel Institute in Hyderabad or whatever, we have to combine the online things on the Mission Karmayogi with the classroom in there and create some hybrid courses and create a track where we are actually verifying and credentialing officers from across the government on digital transformation.
Thank you for watching this session today. We hope you liked the Masterclass session on Being Future Ready. Stay tuned for our next sessions in Being Future Ready series.